Wow.
Yeah, Rex, man, that's good. That's good stuff. This is a big time topic. Great
Oh, let me
episode.
stretch out here because I got some stuff to ask.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Peyton has the next hour of.
I won't make it too long, but
Uh,
this is a really fascinating topic to me because it's something I've had to deal with in my life from somebody, a pair of people that I know, that I kind of watched this codependency thing happening with. Gosh, I'm trying to figure out where to even start. Like, how does this behavior start in a person? Is it like a result from trauma as a child, or is there some reason that a person would become codependent?
Yeah, that's a great question to start with. So I'll give you some background on like how we, and when I say we, I mean kind of the psychological community became aware of this. It was from studying families with an alcoholic, typically an alcoholic father, right? So they were studying this addiction and noticed that there were these family dynamics that started to evolve around trying to keep dad happy, because when dad wasn't happy, someone got hurt. So the family started to, kind of walk on eggshells, but do things to just keep dad happy, right? That's the managing someone else's emotions. And so they learn, they become super sensitive to any little shift in mood or behavior, and start to try to make it up and make things better. So that's how like we started to recognize this to begin with. But I've seen a lot of people develop codependency who didn't have that circumstance. They didn't have major abuse or trauma. And it's related to that self-esteem piece, really. It's something in that childhood, intended or not intended, connected their inner worth to what they can do for other people. And that starts to just kind of set the ball rolling on all these other patterns.
Um, so does that the person I've had to deal with it has the they can't manage their own emotions, so they try to manage everybody else. They try to control other people. Is what I want to do, and it creates this dynamic that you mentioned earlier. Like you can't have an honest, real relationship. You can't be honest with that person. You always have to kind of placate to their view of reality. Otherwise, things get very prickly very fast. Um, so I'm struggling with some of the connections here because it sounds like what you're saying is like you'll have I think it's fascinating that you'll have a dad who is an alcoholic, and if people don't manage his emotions, they get hurt. But the person I've had to deal with is not an alcoholic, but they just, if you don't go by their reality, it's just going to be hard to deal with. Like, so did they develop that demeanor from their childhood of somebody doing that to them? Have you seen that? Were they raised by alcoholics, or does it get passed on?
Yeah. So you're kind of wondering about this prickly
Yeah.
person and where did that come from for them?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit different for everybody in one way or another. Like uh, I've had certain clients that, like, yeah, they had a very demanding childhood. Their parents had super high expectations. They weren't necessarily abusive, but they just had really high expectations. And they only felt like they got loved when they were meeting or exceeding those expectations. And when they fell below, it felt to them that they weren't given any love or appreciation by their parents. Right, so that again can impact how you feel about yourself. And when you're not feeling super good about yourself, then you start to try to take your self-esteem outside of you. Right, you're saying in this example, like this person can't manage their own emotions, so they try to manage everybody else. And that's directly related to, like, I'm uncomfortable when you're uncomfortable. I can't stand if there's not just peace and happiness all the time. If there's not total peace and happiness, I can't stand it. So we got to do whatever we need to get back to peace and happiness.
Man, you are I can't say exactly unraveling, but you're explaining a situation I'm watching from the outside perfectly, that it's mind-boggling that you could nail it so well. How do you it's so difficult to kind of deal with these people sometimes. Like, it's hard for me not to be honestly who I am. So I like what you said earlier about everybody having an innate human value, a human dignity that's the same across the board. And is that did you say that was related to your faith?
I just see that as a spiritual truth.
I agree totally. But man, sometimes it's hard to be empathetic with from the outside watching this. Is there any little tips or tricks or tools you could offer somebody, maybe even me, to just have a good relationship with this person and not be kind of frustrated, I guess?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is it's a whole lot easier to have empathy when you've got an understanding of where someone's coming from, like why they do what they do. It's easier to have empathy for that. So for a lot of people who experience codependency, their self-esteem is just so low, and it's constantly on the edge of like oblivion, that anytime anyone brings something to them, any sort of feedback, even if it's not meant to be some personal hurt, just feedback, I find that person will end up getting defensive in a pretty intense way. And I found that they're really not defensive about whatever thing it is that you said. They're defensive about their inner worth. Because whatever you said, right, as simple as like, hey, I wish you would put the forks in the dishwasher this way instead of this other way, right? And they start getting defensive. They're really not defensive about the fork. They're defensive about it. It feels like what you're saying is, I'm not good enough. And I've already held that belief for so long that I can't stand it anymore. And you kind of bringing this to me feels like it's just going to be that final straw on the camel's back that's going to break everything and send me into this total oblivion of shame and confirm that I really am not good enough, right? So I think it can be helpful to recognize that may be what's happening when you do try to show up authentically and someone takes it personally and they get reactive. They may be reacting to their own inner balance of shame and feeling like they're on the verge. And you being able to recognize that, I think, can help you approach it differently and have a little more empathy for them, knowing that it's really not about whatever that thing is that you said. It's about something way deeper.
In the words of Marty McFly, heavy. That's heavy. There's nothing wrong with the Earth's gravitational pull. Little quote of a good movie there. Gosh, this is really good stuff, Peyton. I am so glad you're sharing this because it's helping me, and I hope this is helping other people. You went through kind of a list of self-esteem, boundaries, their reality, their wants, and their expressing their reality. So from what you're saying, it sounds like when somebody is codependent, they have issues with their own self-esteem. They feel less than, so they're always trying to keep from, like you said, that falling off into the oblivion, bottomless pit of despair. And they don't have proper boundaries. And is establishing proper boundaries, is that like kind of being more emotionally aware?
It certainly can be. Yeah, like a lot of it is boundaries for yourself and boundaries for others. Right? A very simple example of this is like, you meet someone and they stick their hand out to give you a handshake and you go in and just give them a hug, right? That's you're blowing right through their boundary. Their boundary is trying to give you the handshake, right? People who experience codependency often blow right through other people's boundaries. They're not aware, and they struggle to have any for themselves.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's interesting. So but they don't have boundaries, right? Or do they have boundaries?
Often not, but I mean, what's really interesting with codependency, and I think this is what adds to all the misconceptions out there, is I've met a lot of people who have super good, healthy boundaries in certain aspects of their life, and then totally lack of and codependent boundaries in other aspects. And it's usually the more intimate relationships that you get that codependency piece. Right? Someone can show up at work and have good, healthy boundaries, but then when they get home, it all falls apart.
Wow. So why do they have two different sets of boundaries for work and for home? Like, is there a reason for that? It's fascinating.
Yeah, you're asking a good question, and I'm not sure I have a good answer for that one.
It's just to recognize it is incredible. But okay, wow. Now what about their reality? Do they have like a malformed or a wrong view of reality?
Yes, often the answer is yes. So there's kind of two aspects to that reality, like owning and expressing your own reality, and then experiencing and expressing it moderately. Right. So to that first part, owning and expressing your reality, one of the most common phrases that I get from clients is, "I feel like I'm going crazy. I must be crazy because everyone in my life is telling me that I've got all these issues or all these problems, and everything in my gut is telling me that that's not quite true, but like I don't know." And there's so much self doubt, right? When someone does try to have a boundary, that will often get flipped back around, and that self doubt will make them think, well, maybe that really was me, right? Maybe if I can learn to say this a little bit nicer, or do this a little bit better, then maybe my partner won't get so angry next time. Maybe it's not them. Maybe their anger isn't the problem. Maybe it really is me for not saying it nice enough, right? Like that self doubt just creates a whole bunch of confusion, and so you actually don't really know what's true anymore. Like your reality, like you don't even know.
You're like chasing your own tail.
Yeah.
Do you now you see clients, right? You have people who come in, and do you deal with people who are single who are having this issue?
Yeah.
Wow. And do you ever get them to come to the realization, like, okay, maybe you're kind of codependent and you're expecting too much of other people and you don't have boundaries? And do you walk them through them?
I sure try. Yeah, I use these tools like that. I mentioned this wheel of codependency. That's become kind of this core assessment tool, and I found that really resonates with people, and that becomes this way of recognizing, like, oh my gosh, I think I've got some bigger issues, right? So I'll kind of lean into those things if I think they're experiencing enough of these symptoms. I'll lean into that to really explore it and try to bring it to the surface.
Did you mention the wheel of codependency earlier?
I did mention it, but I don't have, like, obviously in doing this, I don't have the graphic I can show you. I've got a little graphic, but I kind of went through it step by step as to, like, someone's uncomfortable. And then I have that feeling of I got to fix it. And then I try to fix it, and they may accept it or they don't, right? That discussion was about
Okay.
codependency.
This is great. This is really good stuff. Enabling. You talked about enabling. So, will a codependent person too, like a helicopter parent, where they just stay over the child and they like do everything for them? They kind of make them unable to do things. How?
Yeah.
So I'm right in that. How? Gosh, how do you help somebody who's doing that?
You got to help them recognize it.
Yeah.
That same step one, you got to be able to acknowledge that this is an issue, right? And I often will try to help them see the deeper dynamic, because parents who do this, they love their kids so much, really more than anything. And that becomes the leverage point when you can help them see that they're actually hurting their child by doing this. Then they get the motivation to change. And what I mean by hurting them is not like a physical hurt, but like every time you do something for your kid that they could do for themselves, you're stealing a little piece of confidence. Rather than them getting that confidence, you've taken it for yourself. And that hurts them in the long
Oh
run.
man, that's a good way of saying that. I mean, I'll just say, even as a parent myself, sometimes it's really hard for me to just back off and like let them make a mistake. Let them make the mistake and learn. It's difficult, but robbing them of their confidence for yourself, that is profound. Thank you for sharing that, Peyton. That's beautifully said.
You're welcome.
Gosh, I could go on for another hour. This is really good, but I'm gonna have to cut it here. Peyton, thank you so much for taking the time, especially around these holidays, to come on and talk about this very important topic.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to talk about it anytime.
Yeah, so helpful, Peyton. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.